And now, here's your host, Scott Foster.
So, what drives you to a podcast? Do you listen to podcasts? What got you to your first podcast? I'm very curious as we talk about the move from, say, reading a book or listening to music. What makes you listen to music more than a podcast, and vice versa? I know when I used to go to the gym, or when I go to the gym, when I used to, hopefully one day I'll go again, but ours are still closed here in New York City. I always listen to music to get me through my workout. But then I got turned on to podcasts, and I use those podcasts now to go to the gym and get me through my workout and just listen. And it's a very weird effect because with the music, it pumps me up, drives me through my workout, especially tough workouts. But now with the podcasts, I just listen, and it's like a soothing thing where I just kind of listen, take it in. It kind of relaxes me. It helps me focus on my workout. Curious if anybody else has similar kind of experiences with podcasts, not necessarily in the gym, but music versus podcasting. And then, is it the type of podcast do you like to listen to that drives you? Like I probably wouldn't listen to a political podcast or a news podcast while I'm working out. Maybe that's for driving or taking a walk or early in the morning kind of thing. But for me, when I go to the gym and I'm working out, it's sports related. It's soccer, talking about the love of my favorite sport that I love to watch. Those kind of things. It's directed by what my actions are, what I'm doing. If I'm sitting here in my office, in my studio, just kind of working on a playlist or working on podcasts of my own, then it's news, then it's politics, then it's kind of day-to-day stuff and stuff to learn. And it's less of the entertainment. And so it's very fun to kind of figure out how we decide what we listen to versus what we do. And when do we listen to a certain type of podcast? Very curious to know what your thoughts are on that. Hit me up. I can be found on Twitter or Instagram, both AD_Foster. But just tell me what it is that you like about podcasts, listening to them. What drives you to a podcast? And then why above that over reading books? What makes you listen to a podcast, throw headphones in, as opposed to cozying up to a book, especially if you were somebody who listens to books often? I'm not a big book reader, but I was. And it's more of now listening to podcasts and having that ability to listen, but also do something else. Whereas with a book, you can't quite do that. You have to be focused on the book because, you can't read if you're not looking at the words. Whereas if you're listening to a podcast, you can listen and be doing something else. You might miss a few things here if you're not a good multitasker and one ear isn't focused on the podcast. But then you can kind of move around and do things, do something else. You can take a minute to walk about, or you can even have a soccer match in the background while you're listening to the podcast. And so listening to a podcast offers so much other flexibility than, say, reading a book. Whereas even listening to music, it's kind of the same thing. And it's just another way for us to can do other things while we're listening to music, listening to a podcast. Multitasking. Even though my wife says I don't do it very well, I think I do it well enough to be able to do listening to a podcast and something else. So what is your interest? Where does it lie in terms of reading a book or listening to a podcast? Is there something else that drives you to the podcast? I just want to learn. I love learning. I love learning things from people. I love learning things from just new things, new ways to do things, and hearing people's experience. And if I get hooked on something, like one of the things I love doing with soccer podcasts is just learning about the game, learning about the people in the game. Like right now, I could not effectively broadcast or commentate on a soccer match, even though I'd love to. I would love to do that right now. I'd love to go and commentate for a radio station or a TV show or whatever and commentate on a soccer match, particularly for my favorite team, Chelsea Football Club in the heart of London. That would be amazing. But I can't do that yet because I'm still learning the game. I'm still learning the ins and outs and being, what is this and what is that? And the people, the history behind these clubs. But I would love it enough that I could do it, but I still need to learn. Cooking. Cooking is a great other thing for podcasts. You talk about what it is that you like to cook. You just find that there's something out there. And it's so experimental, cooking is for me, and finding a podcast about cooking, about a particular recipe or a particular style of cooking. You just get in there and learn and soak it all in. And then you go and use it. It's exactly what you're looking for. Who has found something that they didn't expect to on a podcast? Like you're searching for a new podcast or a new person to listen to, and you've come across a new book or a new author or a new artist, whether it be music or photography even. I've yet to do that. I've come across people that in things that I like that I never would have thought to listen to before. Like I have multiple soccer podcasts. I know I keep talking about soccer, but I love motorsports. I love watching motorsports, and I would have never have guessed that I would be listening to a Formula One podcast 3 months ago. But I found one, and I'm excited to listen to it. And so learning those things and learning the opportunities that podcasting offers. It's an exciting adventure. If you have not tried podcasting or listening to podcasts, I encourage you to visit mine. Tweet Talk. You can find it on all the major platforms. And what I do is I have a Twitter account, AD_Foster, and I follow many different accounts, mostly related to my daytime profession of making films and movie, although not right now, thanks Corona. And what I do is somebody post a fun question like, "What's your favorite franchise?" And then I borrow that tweet and I put it into my podcast, giving you the opportunity to think about something you've never might have thought about. A good discussion piece with your friends and how you can talk to them about, what you think is your favorite franchise. Some of these things that I throw on my podcast would be great first date questions. You got a first date with somebody. What is your favorite sequel to a movie? You guys can have a discussion for 15, 20 minutes, breaking the ice. As long as, of course, as your date likes movies and watches sequels. And so the opportunities are there. And my podcast, per se, has been called the Seinfeld of podcasts because it's about everything and nothing at all. Somebody sent me that. I think his name was Jerry. Anyway, I encourage you to search the plethora of podcasts and tell me what some of your favorite ones are. Again, I can be hit up here at Mixelara or even on my Twitter or Instagram, AD_Foster. It's so much out there, and especially for those of you that are like me, unfortunately, and we still have not got quite back to work yet, or not back to work as much as we want to. have the time. We have the time to do new things and learn new things. I encourage you to take this time to find a podcasts, or start listening to them. It's so diverse. Now, the problem can be is that you find something that you like and you can't keep up with all of the podcasts for a particular show. I know I follow like 10 different people, 10 different podcasts, and I have a lot to catch up on mainly because some of them put out daily podcasts, but it's exciting to listen to them. So you find that time to catch up to them and learn and listen and grow your audience and grow your knowledge. Who doesn't like to learn? Man, it's a really fun opportunity. So I want to hear from you, what you think. I hope this put you on a path of learning the world of podcasts or just exploring podcasts. And you don't have to listen to them all the time, but you're going to find your time, what your best time is to listen to a podcast. Is it right when you first wake up, when you're walking your dog or going to get your coffee, or just going downstairs and making your coffee and drinking it? Is it at night when you're relaxing, you're in bed, you're just finding something to kind of put you at ease so you have a good night's sleep? Podcasts are a perfect opportunity. And I encourage you to find one that you like, or a couple, and let me know what they are. Thanks for listening. Again, you can find me, my podcast, at Tweet Talk, any place that serves up podcasts. I'll be back.